There is a building in the high desert of Colorado, 100 miles south of Denver, where the United States government sends the people it never wants the world to hear from again. The men who bombed the World Trade Center, the man who bombed the Boston Marathon, the man who bombed the Oklahoma City Federal Building, the Unabomber, the most powerful drug lord in the Western Hemisphere, spies who sold American secrets to Russia, gang leaders who murdered correctional officers inside other prisons, terrorists who tried to blow up airplanes with explosives hidden in their shoes. Every one of them was sent to the same address. Every one of them lives under the same rules. And every one of them occupies a concrete cell roughly the size of a parking spot, sealed behind 2 steel doors, in a building that was specifically engineered to make human connection physically impossible. The facility is called ADX Florence. They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies. It is the only federal supermax prison in the United States. 37 acres carved into the side of a mountain. Open since 1994. 0 escapes in more than 30 years. A former warden named Robert Hood spent over 20 years with the Federal Bureau of Prisons and oversaw the Supermax from 2002 until his retirement. He described it in 6 words. It is a tomb, a mausoleum. A former inmate named Jack Powers, who spent years inside and later wrote about the experience, went further. He called it the death penalty on a payment plan. This is the story of a building. Not one inmate, not one crime. The building itself, how it was born, what it was designed to do, who it holds, and what happens to the human mind when you lock it inside a machine that was never built for humanity. ADX Florence was born from blood. On October 22, 1983, at the Federal Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, 2 members of the Aryan Brotherhood carried out attacks that would change the American prison system forever. Thomas Silverstein, using a handmade shank and a stolen key, murdered correctional officer Merle Klutz in a corridor. Hours later, Clayton Fountain killed Officer Robert Hoffman in the same facility using a concealed knife. 2 officers dead in one day inside what was supposed to be the most secure federal prison in the country. The fallout was immediate. Marion went into permanent lockdown. Every inmate confined to their cell 23 hours a day. No group recreation, no communal dining, no movement without full restraints and armed escort. It was supposed to be temporary. It lasted decades, and it became the blueprint for something new. The federal government decided that, among the most dangerous people in the American prison system, some required a facility where escape was physically impossible, where violence between inmates was operationally eliminated, and where communication with the outside world could be controlled down to the syllable. In 1994, Attorney General Janet Reno opened that facility, ADX Florence in Colorado. The architecture was designed by the same firm that had built other federal prisons, but the specifications were unlike anything that had come before. I have read a lot of descriptions of prisons for this channel, and nothing I have come across compares to what the engineers built into the side of that mountain. Every cell at ADX Florence measures 7 feet by 12 feet, 84 square feet. The bed is a poured concrete slab with a thin mattress pad. The desk is concrete. The stool is concrete. The sink and toilet are a single stainless steel unit bolted to the wall. Nothing in the cell can be moved, broken, or fashioned into a weapon, because nothing in it was ever designed to be anything other than part of the structure itself. 2 doors seal each cell, an interior barred door and a solid steel outer door. When both are closed, the cell is effectively soundproofed. You cannot hear the person in the cell next to you. You cannot tap codes on the walls. You exist in silence. The only window is 4 inches wide and roughly 3 feet tall. cut at a deliberate angle through the concrete so that no inmate can determine their location within the building. You cannot see the Rocky Mountains. You cannot see the road. You cannot see another human being. A former inmate named Travis Dusenbury spent 10 years in the general population at ADX and described the window in plain terms. You cannot see nothing. Not a highway in the distance. Not the sky. Not for years and years. The isolation extends far beyond the cell walls. 12 gun towers ring the compound. Razor wire, attack dogs, laser detection grids, motion sensors, and pressure pads embedded in the floors track every movement inside the building. Over 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors govern access to every corridor, every recreation area, every section of the facility. A single panic button in the central control room simultaneously locks every door in the building. There is a subterranean hallway connecting the cell blocks to the main lobby so that no inmate ever sees the layout of the complex. If an inmate somehow managed to leave his cell, he would not know which direction leads to the outside. The building was designed to make orientation impossible. When an inmate leaves his cell, and that happens rarely, he is placed in full restraints. Hands shackled and chained to a belt around his waist. Ankles shackled with a short chain that forces a shuffle. A team of officers escorts him to wherever he is going, which is usually a small concrete recreation pen that former inmates call the dog run. The pen is roughly the same size as the cell. High concrete walls on every side. The only thing visible from inside is a rectangle of Colorado sky. The inmate goes alone. He exercises alone. He returns to his cell alone. Strip searches are routine. Head counts occur multiple times a day, conducted through the steel doors by officers who are trained to minimize verbal interaction. To understand what daily life actually feels like inside this building, you have to understand what daily life does not include. There is no communal dining hall. Every meal is delivered through a narrow slot in the steel door. 2 trays, one hot, one cold, eaten alone in a cell within arm's reach of the toilet. The Bureau of Prisons operates the same 5 menu rotations here that it runs in every federal facility: regular, pork-free, religious, vegetarian, and low sodium. Breakfast is Danish bread or cereal with milk. Lunch and dinner cycle through the same rotation of institutional meals we described in our video about what inmates eat inside the federal system. The difference is context. In a low-security facility like Fort Dix, that same meal is eaten at a table in a dining hall surrounded by other human beings. At ADX Florence, it is eaten alone, sitting on a concrete stool, in a soundproofed cell, under a fluorescent light that never fully turns off. There is no prison yard where inmates play basketball or lift weights or talk to each other in the sun. There is no job assignment where you report to a kitchen or a workshop or a chapel and interact with other human beings for a few hours. There is no commissary run where you browse shelves and pick out a snack. Education and religious programming are delivered through a 13-inch television behind shatterproof glass. Pre-recorded content only, never live broadcasts. Psychological evaluations happen through the steel doors. Medical assessments are conducted primarily through video cameras mounted in the cells. When a psychiatrist is needed, the session happens through a teleconferencing screen. The system is designed so that nearly everything an inmate requires can be delivered without opening his door. Even the phone system reflects this architecture of separation. Inmates are allowed one 15-minute phone call per month, not per week. Per month. That call is monitored, recorded, and restricted to a pre-approved list. One call, 15 minutes, 30 days of silence. If you have spent time on this channel watching our videos about daily life inside other facilities, about the routines and the hierarchies and the unwritten rules that govern how inmates survive, forget all of it. None of that applies here. At ADX Florence, There is no social system because there is no society. There are only individual human beings sealed inside individual concrete boxes, monitored around the clock by cameras and microphones, living parallel lives that almost never intersect. The Bureau of Prisons maintains that ADX Florence is not intended to be permanent for most inmates. The official stated goal is to hold an inmate for no more than 3 years, and then transfer him to a less restrictive facility if his behavior warrants it. There is a step-down program designed to gradually increase an inmate's out-of-cell time and social contact over a period of roughly 36 months. After at least 1 year, depending on conduct, inmates can be moved to units with slightly longer recreation periods and the possibility of exercising with one other person. But for the men in the most restricted units, the ones under special administrative measures, the step-down program does not apply. For them, ADX Florence is not a way station. It is the destination. The men who live in those boxes are, by any measure, among the most dangerous and consequential criminals in modern history. Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, has been at ADX since 2002. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, one of the 2 brothers who detonated pressure cooker bombs at the Boston Marathon finish line in 2013, killing 3 people and injuring hundreds, was transferred to ADX in 2015. Richard Reed, the British citizen who attempted to detonate a shoe bomb on a transatlantic flight in 2001, is there. Eric Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber who terrorized the 1996 Atlanta Games and later bombed abortion clinics, is there. Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who spent over 20 years selling American intelligence secrets to Russia in what the Department of Justice called the worst spy scandal in American history, is there. Terry Nichols, who helped Timothy McVeigh plan the Oklahoma City bombing that killed 168 people, is there. And Joaquin Guzman Loera, the man the world calls El Chapo, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel who escaped from 2 different maximum security prisons in Mexico and was extradited to the United States in 2017, is there. If you have watched our Prison Files episodes on El Chapo at ADX, you already know what his existence looks like inside this building. He occupies a special 4-cell wing that staff call the Suites, designated Range 13, the most restricted housing in the entire federal prison system. He has not physically touched a family member since his sentencing. His only human connection is his neighbor, an aging mob-connected con artist named James Sabatino, who communicates with him through the wall in broken Spanish. That is ADX Florence at its most extreme. But even the general population units, where inmates technically have slightly more freedom, operate under conditions that most people on the outside would find difficult to imagine. And here is what makes ADX Florence a genuinely difficult story to tell with any intellectual honesty. The building works. In more than 3 decades of operation, no inmate has ever escaped. The rate of inmate-on-inmate violence is effectively 0 in the Supermax units because inmates never encounter each other. Officers are safer here than at any other high-security federal facility because the architecture eliminates the physical proximity that makes assaults possible. The building does exactly what it was designed to do. It incapacitates. The question is what that incapacitation costs. Amnesty International has documented that ADX inmates routinely go days with only a few words spoken to them. A Bureau of Prisons report found that 174 inmates had spent between 5 and 19 years in unbroken solitary confinement at the facility. Psychological assessments have identified depression, anxiety, hallucinations, cognitive deterioration, and self-harm among the inmate population. Jack Powers, the former inmate who described the facility as the death penalty on a payment plan, descended so far into psychosis during his time at ADX that he cut off both of his earlobes, chewed through a finger, and smashed his head open attempting to inject bacteria into his own brain. Thomas Silverstein, one of the men whose murders at Marion prompted the construction of ADX in the first place, spent more than 30 years in solitary confinement and said publicly that he often wished for death. In 2012, a class action lawsuit filed against the Bureau of Prisons alleged that ADX Florence was holding inmates with severe mental illness in conditions that constituted cruel and unusual punishment. The case resulted in a settlement requiring improved mental health screening and treatment protocols. But critics argued the reforms did not go far enough because the fundamental architecture of the facility, the thing that makes it effective, is also the thing that makes it devastating. The isolation is not a side effect, it is the design. And in 2025, the building took on a new and deeply controversial role. After President Biden commuted the death sentences of 37 federal death row inmates in December 2024, converting their punishments to life without parole, the incoming administration issued an executive order directing the Attorney General to house those inmates in conditions consistent with the severity of their crimes. The Bureau of Prisons began the process of transferring them to ADX Florence. The decision was immediate and sweeping. Inmates who had spent years, in some cases decades, with clean disciplinary records were given transfer recommendations within hours of their hearings. Several were classified under a newly created security threat group designation labeled death row inmate, even though their death sentences had been legally commuted. A former inmate named Rejon Taylor, who had maintained a clean record and participated in extensive programming, described being told by officials that they had been instructed to send him to ADX Florence. He said an official asked him whether he wanted to give back his commutation. Lawyers for the inmates filed suit, arguing that many of them did not meet the Bureau's own criteria for Supermax placement, which requires a demonstrated inability to function in a less restrictive environment. A federal judge named Timothy Kelly, who had been appointed by President Trump, temporarily blocked the transfers. He found evidence that the Bureau may have predetermined the outcome before conducting any formal administrative review. He wrote that legal processes must be genuine and not merely performative. Gary Moore, a former director of the Ohio Correction System and past president of the American Correctional Association, told journalists that the plan contradicted fundamental corrections policy, which for decades has been to impose the least restrictive environment necessary to maintain custody. As of early 2026, the legal battle continues. 10 of the former death row inmates have already been transferred to ADX Florence. Others remain in limbo, waiting to learn whether they will be sent to a facility that one of its own former wardens described as far worse than death. I will be honest. This is the part of the story where I stop knowing exactly where I stand. The men inside ADX Florence are responsible for acts of violence that are difficult to even describe. They have killed federal officers, detonated bombs in public spaces, poisoned entire cities with narcotics, and sold out their own country to foreign intelligence services. The argument for ADX Florence is simple. These are the people who proved, through their actions, that no other facility in the country can safely hold them. The counter-argument is equally simple. Prolonged solitary confinement causes measurable, documented psychological destruction, and at some point the deliberate infliction of that destruction crosses a line, regardless of what the person did to get there. Where that line sits is something this channel is not going to tell you. We are going to show you the building, show you the people inside it, and let you decide. Right now, at the base of the Rocky Mountains, roughly 335 men are sitting in concrete cells the size of parking spots. Their steel doors are closed. Their windows show a 4-inch strip of sky. Their meals come through a slot. Their only company is a 13-inch television that plays programs someone else selected. Their recreation happens alone, in a cage under surveillance. Some of them have been there for more than 20 years. Some of them will die there. Some of them are already losing their minds. And some of them committed crimes so terrible that the people who built this place would tell you that every square inch of concrete is justified. The building does not care which of those things you believe. It was not built to care. It was built to hold. It was built to isolate. And it was built to make sure the people inside, every single one of them, are never heard from again. Whether that is justice or whether it is something else depends entirely on which fact you decide matters more: the crime that put them there or the concrete that keeps them. If this changed how you think about the most secure prison ever built, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We go inside the systems no one else is showing you. Drop a comment and tell us, does ADX Florence make you feel safer, or does it make you feel something else entirely? I am Adam, and this is Prison Files.